Hi everybody, I'm here with Christine McCulka, and we're going to be talking for a few minutes about what I'm calling tips for transformative learning. And there's two that I want to talk about. The first comes out of the East. There's the term beginner's mind, how it is that we learn by approaching everything new, which is exactly what you were talking about earlier. Is that approaching material, even if it's familiar, like a child would, with curiosity. And I'm going to suggest that that's really key to learning. And in the course of a class, for example, where I'm reading books that maybe cover material that's new, but also material that's familiar, it means keeping my eyes wide open for new insights. So I never settle for the familiar. And I think that beginner's mind is critical. It actually makes learning pleasurable for me if I approach a material, no matter whether it's new or old, with the idea that today I might get something new out of it. The image comes to my mind of a spiral, that even when I come to material that I'm familiar with, that I'm coming in a full circle, and it's that there's a sense of I'm not the same person that came across this material a year ago or even a week ago. I'm constantly changing. So why would my relationship to the material be the same? So I want to suggest beginner's mind as one tip. The second tip has to do with making a shift from learning passively to learning actively. The image I have is that I can approach my learning, whether it's reading or interacting with a classmate or a faculty mentor, I can approach that passively, basically feed me with knowledge. Or I can take a different approach, and I actually think of it as involving a shift from being a passive learner to being an active mentor. And what I mean by that is that anything that I learn, let's say that I'm reading a book chapter, that I set out as my goal that within 48 hours, a couple days after reading whatever chapter it is, that I set in my mind that I'm going to share that with somebody. It could be a family member, a friend, a classmate, it could even be a client if I'm working in counseling, but that I'm working actively at teaching what I'm learning to someone else. I know that from all the years of teaching that the material I learn best is the material that I actually teach. It's almost like it goes into my bone memory or something like that. And so it's a different kind of learning. One of the things that's helpful, and I think it's really called upon for us in the mental health professions, is to translate oftentimes complex theory or research, to translate it into English. And this piece that I'm talking about, where I learn actively and I learn with the goal of teaching someone else, it really forces me to translate complicated concepts into what a layperson can understand. Otherwise they won't have any interest. And so it kind of keeps me honest. And as I said earlier, I think it also helps me to learn things by heart, by as quickly as possible trying to convey it to someone else. And so tips for transformative learning. First one is as to adopt beginner's mind when we approach material new or old. And the second is to really work at learning actively and mentoring others with what we learn that way. Thank you, Christine.